Okay, well, I know Varun, he brought something up last week. And also Nanga Manjari has just said she has a question. However, today is a special day. Tomorrow is a very auspicious day. So I feel like we have to talk, unless it's really urgent. Ananga Manjari, is your question urgent, or can we
It's
wait till
not
next
urgent
week?
or anything. It can be asked at any time. It's just kind of something I've been thinking about recently, about kind of how I can do like preaching. I was kind of wondering.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's a really nice topic. I'm gonna put those two topics on hold because first of all, today is Janardhan Maharaj's appearance day, and tomorrow is Vasanta Panchami. And Vasanta Panchami, it's like the day with the most the most divine personalities are connected, and any other day in the year, tomorrow. So I want to say something. There's like 6 or 7 different divine persons who are connected with the date tomorrow. So I'm going to try and squeeze in a little time for each of these divine persons, and we can pick up next week with the other topics which have been suggested, if that's okay. Does that sound good, Chinmoy Peru? Yeah.
Very nice, Didi. I'd like to
Okay,
know more about this subject as well, too.
and so Kel, you must be having a special, or things are still like kind of restricted, so they're not having an open program.
Yeah, it'll be virtual. There maybe some devotees who will go there, but mostly virtual.
Okay, that'll be in the evening time.
No, it's actually happening
Noon
very
time.
soon. We're doing it
Okay.
at noontime.
All right. Okay, well, first we'll start off offering our appreciation for Janardhan Maharaj. Today is his holy appearance day, and we really want to express heartfelt appreciation for him. He's very faithful follower of our Gurudev, Srila Govinda Maharaj, also our Param Gurudev, our grandfather Guru, Srila Sridhar Maharaj, and also our great uncle Guru, Srila Swami Maharaj Prabhupada. Janardhan Maharaj has been a very, stalwart, faithful follower of all 3 of these, divine guardians. And I always think of him as a wonderful example of sacrifice, because to come and take shelter of Srila Sridhar Maharaj and Sri Chaitanya Saraswati Math, he sacrificed a lot. He had a big position, many disciples and resources, but he left everything to take shelter of Srila Sridhar Maharaj in Navadvip. And at that time, our Mat was, our Mat later became a big grand mission around the world, but this is early 80s, it wasn't like that. So, I think of him as a very wonderful example of that. And also, Janardhan, just a few other words we can say, because we don't have so much time, but his humor, his realness, his affectionate nature, these are some of the things that immediately come to mind when we think of Janardhan Maharaj. And not only was he a faithful follower of our Gurudev, but our Gurudev loved him very much and trusted him very much. And, he was part of the inner circle of our Gurudev's, associates, companions. There was one occasion when Gurudev commented that he had like a family relationship with our Gurudev. And there was one occasion when Gurudev said, "I don't have any sons, but if I had one, I would like one like him." And he pointed to Janardhan Maharaj. Janardhan Maharaj, for anyone who knows Janardhan Maharaj, he has a very playful nature. He always keeping things light, not letting us get too bogged down in becoming, overly serious or depressed or anything like that. So and also he can give very substantial representation, not that it's my position to say, but he also gives very substantial representation, not just in terms of the Siddhanta, the teachings, but also in terms of heart. We all see that he speaks with great heart, the teachings of our gurus. So we're very grateful to him. We're very fortunate that, our Gurudev is everything, but without so many of these other stalwarts like Janardhan Maharaj and Goswami Maharaj, Ashram Maharaj, Acharya Maharaj, all of these other great stalwarts, we wouldn't be where we are. They are like pillars in our mission, and they have been for many years, and they still are, and we're very grateful to them for that. So Jai Srila Bhakti Pavan Janardhan Maharaj Jai. Then Vasanta Panchami, which is tomorrow, it's a very special day. And as I said, there's more persons connected with this day than any other day we have our own calendar, our Vaishnava devotional calendar. And so we have particular dates throughout the year which we're honoring in connection with the appearance days of the Lord and different manifestations, and also the appearance and disappearance days of the great Vaishnava saints. Because everything in connection with the saints becomes purified and holy. Even the time, the date on which they choose to appear or leave this world becomes purified by them, by connection with them. And so tomorrow is one of those days, but it's a very busy day. And so briefly we can just mention who is connected. It is the appearance day of Vishnu Priya Devi, who is the consort of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. It is also the appearance day of Pundarik Vijayanidhi, a dear associate of Mahaprabhu. Appearance of Raghunath Das Goswami, who is one of the preeminent acharyas in our line, and also appearance of Raghunandan Thakur, another associate of Mahaprabhu. Then it's the disappearance day of Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, who is a very important commentator on our Vaishnava scriptures. And then also the disappearance day of two of Srila Sridhar Maharaj's godbrothers, Shripad Bharati Maharaj and Shripad Parva Maharaj. And it is also Saraswati Puja. And I think like for general Hindus, Saraswati Puja is what this day is most known for. The first day of spring and Saraswati Puja. And as I recall, in Bengal, persons would tend to wear yellow on that day, I believe, because that's related with Saraswati Devi. Saraswati Devi is the goddess of learning, the goddess of knowledge. And so principally, that is how this day is honored and celebrated, at least in Bengal. And there's a talk of Srila Sridhar Maharaj where he's speaking about goddess Saraswati and how she has two manifestations. Her grace is expressed in two lines. There is knowledge in a worldly. She can bless persons with knowledge in a worldly sense, but she can also bless persons for knowledge in a spiritual sense. So we can ask for her blessings to help us in our spiritual development on this day. Okay, so we'll try to mention a few things. Oh, we have a message here from Chintamani. Okay, so next week you won't be available. All right, hopefully the week after. Thanks for letting us know. So Vishnu Priya Devi we can mention first. She is, of course, known as the second wife of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And her life, she is celebrated and honored especially for her great sacrifice. Mahaprabhu, Sri Chaitanya Dev, he left to take sannyas, to take to the renounced order when he was very young and she was very young. Mahaprabhu was 24 years old and she was about 15 years. In those days, the tradition was for persons to marry very young. So she was about 15 years old, and she had to live the life of a widow, basically, because her husband left so young. And she lived a life of extreme austerity and self-abnegation. And there's one talk of Srila Sridhar Maharaj where he speaks about her sacrifice and how because she gave up her husband, and no ordinary husband. And by that sacrifice, she enabled the upliftment of the whole world. All the conditioned souls of this world, they were benefited because she made that kind of sacrifice. And it's also mentioned how, one of the reasons Mahaprabhu had to leave Navadvip is because there was the reasons he had to give up family life and et cetera, is that there was a lot of opposition against him. That there were persons who could not understand the mission he was on, and there were persons who were disrespecting him. And so he considered that he had to, people just saw him as another family man like themselves, and that for people to take him seriously, he would have to take up a different post. So there was some kind of anti-group against him in Navadvip. But it's mentioned that Vishnu Priya Devi's sacrifice and her life of simplicity and austerity was so great that it melted the hearts of everyone, even the persons who were against Mahaprabhu. They were converted, seeing how she was living her life and seeing what kind of devotion she had for Mahaprabhu, and seeing how glorious she was in the life that she was living, that even those who were previously anti to Mahaprabhu, their hearts were melted and they could not but come to appreciate who Mahaprabhu was. It's mentioned how, she would eat in a very frugal way, and the way that she would eat every day is she would have some grains of rice, and she would take one grain of rice and she would chant the Maha Mantra, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, with one grain of rice, and then set that aside. And then another grain of rice, Hare Krishna, Krishna. And then when she had some small handful, some small pile, then she would cook that. And that's what she would live on. Like that. That's how simply she maintained herself. She stayed in the care of Shachi Mata, Mahaprabhu's mother. And the other prominent story that we hear connected with Vishnu Priya Devi is with the deity. She had a deity manifest, and there were only three deities that were manifest that were worshipped in the time of Mahaprabhu himself. So these are three deities that are particularly special and significant. And one of them is a deity that Vishnu Priya Devi, she had manifest. And there's a story, how she requested this deity to be made. And normally, when it comes to a deity, we accept the deity as something that is descending. So, whoever the deity comes, it comes, but the exception, like you don't go changing the deity after the deity has come. But the exception to that is Vishnu Priya Devi. And so it is said that she requested this deity to be made. But when the deity was presented to her, she rejected the deity and said, "No, this is not my Lord," and she rejected. And then a second one was presented to her later, and again she rejected it and said, "No, this is not my Lord." And then the third time, it said that she felt so strongly the presence of that deity that she covered her head, because there's a custom in India that married ladies in front of their husbands or a respectable person, they will cover their head as like a sign of respect and shyness. And so she felt the presence of her Lord there so strongly that she covered her head like that with her sari. And that deity is still being worshipped today. And we visit that temple every year. For those of you who have participated in the Navadvip Parikrama, you'll have been there. And it's extremely beautiful deity. You know, we hear Srila Sridhar Maharaj very much appreciated that deity. So that is Vishnupriya Devi. There's also a pair of sandals there, which are said to be Mahaprabhu's. And so we've heard another story from Srila Sridhar Maharaj, how, you know, after 5 years of having taken sannyas, Mahaprabhu stopped. He came to Navadvip because traditionally, after taking sannyas, someone cannot return to their birthplace because there's too much attachment, too much emotion involved there, family bonds. So normally sannyasis, they're not allowed to return to their birthplace, but they're allowed to go back one time. And so Mahaprabhu, he, after 5 years, he returned once. However, he didn't go so close to the exact place where his family home was, but he went to surrounding areas mostly. But it's mentioned that he passed by their home where Vishnupriya was living at one point. From some distance, he passed by, and the way Srila Sridhar Maharaj describes it, it's so heartbreaking. You know, that she was like standing at the gate, this very forlorn figure, you know, dressed very poorly and you know, feeling this pain of separation. And from some distance, Mahaprabhu, he passed by her very quickly, and he paused very briefly and left his shoes there. He very quickly stopped and took off his sandals and left his shoes there, and then continued on his way very quickly. And he was, you know, leaving those sandals like as a way of some token of love, and, you know, telling her, please take this, try to get some relief from your pain of separation. And it is said that those sandals there in that temple, they are the same sandals. So that is Vishnupriya Devi. She is an example of very glorious sacrifice for the sake of persons like ourselves. Then also tomorrow, Vasanta Panchami, it is the divine appearance day of Pundarik Vidyanidhi. And Pundarik Vidya, you know, Gora Leela and Krishna Leela, they are parallel, and all of the participants in Krishna Leela, they have their alter ego in Gora Leela. And so Pundarik Vidyanidhi in Krishna Leela, he's actually Rishabhanuraj. He is the father of Srimati Radharani. So very important position. And then he appears in Gora Leela as Pundarik Vidyanidhi. And he's a very mysterious Vaishnava, you know, and you know, his nature and his style, it, you know, offers an important teaching, an example to all of us, in that he appeared as a very wealthy Vaishnava. And normally we associate saintly persons with, you know, being very poor and extremely simple. And more often than not, that is the case. That is how they present themselves. But it's not always the case. And it's not that's like a, you know, a box that everyone has to fit into. It's not like that. Bhakti, devotion, is independent of anything external in this world. So Pundarik Vijayanidhi, he was actually a very wealthy Vaishnava. And his hometown, I cannot remember the name, but it was some distance from Navadvip. And he, you know, wealthy people, they'll tend to have a few different residences, right? They'll have their main house, they'll have their winter home, their summer holiday home, etc., etc. So Pundarik, so in that, now when you go to Navadvip, it doesn't look the way it used to, but we hear, you know, 500 years ago or so, in the time of Mahaprabhu, it was a very wealthy place, and it was like a center of learning in Navadvip. Sorry, it was a center of learning in India, and it was a very wealthy place, and partly, no doubt, because the Ganges flows there, and so persons always like to come and visit the Ganges. And so wealthy people would often have another home near the Ganges. And Navadvip was one of those places. And so Pundarik Vijayanidhi, he had his main house. Was it, maybe it's Chattagram or something like that. Some distance, not so far from Navadvip. And then he had his second home in Navadvip. And nobody knew him in Navadvip except for Mukunda. Mukunda is one of the main associates of Mahaprabhu. And so Pundarik Vijayanidhi, Mukunda was from the same town as Pundarik, so that's how he knew him. And so anyhow, on one occasion, Pundarik Vijayanidhi, he came to visit Navadvip. And of course, only Mukunda knew him. And so one day Mukunda, he said to Gadadhar Pandit, you know, very close companion of Mahaprabhu, would you like to meet a new Vaishnava? You know, there's a new Vaishnava in town. Would you like to meet him? And Gadadhar was very happy about that idea. You know, what could actually be more joyful than to meet a wonderful Vaishnava? And especially, you know, one that you know, we haven't met before. Oh, sorry, I have a request. Could you give a tiny explanation? Who is Mahaprabhu? Yes, I'm sorry. I was wondering if I should do that. Yes, of course. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he is known as the avatar of divine love. We worship Krishna as the supreme Godhead, as the fountainhead of all expressions of divinity. And then Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he is a non-different expression of Krishna who comes in a mood of great magnanimity. And he, you know, the Vedas, they describe how the world is moving in a cycle of 4 different ages. And each of these ages, there's a particular dharma, and there's also what's described as the Yuga avatar. So there's a Yuga dharma. The dharma for that yuga means that age. And then there's also a yuga avatar, an avatar who comes in that yuga to spread the dharma of the age. And so Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he is the avatar for this age of Kali Yuga. And he comes to spread the dharma of Sankirtan, of Kirtan, of chanting. And he appeared in this world around 500 years ago. And so he's very important for us because, as I said, he has a very great mood of magnanimity. You know, Krishna, his nature, he is somewhat self-absorbed, we could say, in the highest sense. You know, Krishna, he is absorbed in his divine play and loving play with his associates and companions. He's not thinking so much about the suffering souls of this world, but in the form of Mahaprabhu, he is doing so. He's chasing after the souls of this world, trying to help them, and principally trying to give them kirtan, this process of chanting, and to awaken desire for Krishna prema, divine love, as being the highest object of life. And he appeared in Bengal, and he was a very prominent scholar, came from a very respectable family, had a beautiful wife, but he left everything very early on in order to spread this dharma of kirtan throughout India. And that wave that he initiated, then later in more recent times, that came out to the Western world, and within the last 50 years. And so that wave of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, it is now moving around the world. And he is our principal worshipable deity and Lord, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He is not as well known as Krishna, but he is there's more emphasis on him in our line, and we understand that we can only get a connection with Krishna through the mercy, through the grace of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, because of that mood of generosity and magnanimity. And he appears in a very beautiful golden figure. Gaur Sundar is one of his names, means beautiful golden form. So we spoke a little bit about his wife, his consort, Vishnupriya Devi, and now we're speaking about another of his associates, Pundarik Vidyanidhi, who they are both appeared. This is their birthday, their birth anniversary. So we're just normally on our Monday meeting, I'm sorry if this is like a bit too much for some of you. Normally we have more broad discussion, we have questions and answers, but when we're next to a very special day like this, then we want to say something about that. So I hope this isn't too much. I hope it's not too overwhelming. And please tune in another day if you want to join in the more broad discussion. Normally we do. So please excuse us if it's a bit too much. It's just one of those days. So Pundarik Vidyanidhi, so he arrived to Navadvip, and Mukunda, who knew him from his hometown, he mentioned to Gadadhar, "Oh, do you want to meet a new Vaishnav? There's a new Vaishnav in town." And Gadadhar was very happy about this, and he said, yes, please take me to meet him. And Gadadhar, he is known, one of the things that he's known for is his extreme simplicity, very, very simple. And so when he arrived to the home of Pundarik Vidyanidhi, he was quite taken aback, because Pundarik Vidyanidhi, he didn't have any shyness about wealth. And Chinmoy is sharing a very beautiful verse here about the glories of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Very beautiful. Gurudev, it's one of Gurudev's favorite verses. He really liked that verse. So Pundarik, he didn't have any shyness about wealth, and he had very wealthy looking home, and he himself was dressed in a very opulent style. And he had, when they arrived, he was reclining on his bed. He had silken sheets and silken bed covers and pillows, and he had servants who were fanning him. He had this long curling hair. What else? He was smoking a hookah with some very expensive tobacco. I don't know if anyone else can remember any details. But he was, let's just say, he was not, when you think of like a Vaishnava saint, he was looking the opposite of that. He looked like like a movie star, or some very,
Didn't he have like a mirror and servants fanning him and like a well-oiled, beautiful mustache? It was all oiled and scented perfumes and cushions everywhere.
He had long hair. Yeah, long hair.
Yes.
Beautiful hair.
Yes, exactly. So then enter Gadadhar, who's like living this life of extreme, like extreme simplicity, a monk, the monk's life. And Gadadhar is completely shocked. And Mukunda knows what Gadadhar is thinking, you know. And Gadadhar is very awkward, and Gadadhar, our Gurudev mentioned, like he was thinking, like, you know, how can I get out of here? You know, when you're in one of those awkward situations and you're like thinking of an excuse, like, what can I say to get out of this? Like, I don't want to talk to these people. So Gadadhar was thinking something like that. And Mukunda knew. And so then Mukunda thought, oh, I'll show him who he really is. And Mukunda, he's known for having a beautiful singing voice, and so he used to sing, to chant verses from Bhagavatam and elsewhere. And so he started to chant one verse in particular, a very beautiful verse, a whole Bhakiyam Sanakalukutam Jikam Saya Payavat Apyasadvi Lebegatim Dachi Uchitam Tutonyam Kam Vadayalam Sharanam Rajena. Kam Vadayalam Sharanam Rajema. And this verse, it is related with the Leela, the pastime of Putana. You know, Putana, she was a demoness who came to try to kill Krishna by smearing poison on her breast, and she came as a nursemaid. But Krishna, he was so merciful that he just considered that, oh, she wants to nurse me. You know, he ignored everything else, and he just considered, oh, she is so affectionate, she wants to nurse me. And so in her next life, he gave her a position as a nursemaid in his eternal Leela. So this verse is celebrating Krishna's mercy, Krishna's merciful nature, that, you know, she came to kill him, but he was so merciful to her, he gave her a position like a nurse. And then the conclusion of this verse is very poignant. Kamba dayalam sharanam vrajena, means, you know, who can we find who is more merciful than Krishna? You know, it's phrased like a rhetorical question. To whom else should I go? To whom else can I go to surrender other than Krishna? Who will you find who is more merciful than Krishna? And so Mukunda chanted this verse in a very beautiful voice. And Pundarik Vidyanidhi, when he heard that, he just went mad. You know, he went into this ecstatic trance. And he fell off of his bed, he started rolling on the floor, and he was crying and crying and just repeating again and again this last line, Kam Vadayalam Sharanam Rajema, Kam Vadayalam Sharanam. Who is more merciful than Krishna? Whom else can I go to for shelter other than Krishna? Like this. And so Gadadhar, he's witnessing this, and he was completely astonished, and he began to feel very bad, because he felt, you know, I was judging him by his external appearance. I thought he was, you know, very superficial, materialistic person, but now I'm seeing what is his inner heart, and he felt very ashamed. And so he considered, you know, what can I do to rectify my offense? And then he thought to himself, he had not taken Diksha initiation from anyone yet. And he thought, the Guru is like the father. And the father never accepts the mistakes of their children. The father never takes offense from their children. The children may do many things wrong, but the parents, they never take that so seriously. So Gadadhar, he thought to himself, well, you know, I haven't taken initiation yet from anyone. If I accept him as my guru, then he will excuse me. He must excuse me for anything. And so he did that. He ended up taking initiation. From Pundarik. And of course, this has a deeper significance that Gadadhar Pandit is Srimati Radharani in Gaura Leela. And so their eternal relationship was expressed in this way. He is Rishabhanaraj, the father of Radharani, and Gadadhar is Radharani. So their relationship came in this way in Gaura Leela. And it's also mentioned that Mahaprabhu would on one time when Pundarik was approaching maybe Puri or Navadvip, I don't remember, but one time Mahaprabhu started calling out Bap. Bap means father. And so Mahaprabhu, in the mood of Radharani, sometimes he was thinking of him in that way. And so he called out sometimes, and no one could understand, why he was saying that. And Mahaprabhu would also call him Preman, his name is Pundarik Vidyanidhi. Vidya is knowledge, and Vidyanidhi means something like a reservoir of knowledge. But Mahaprabhu would sometimes call him Premanidhi, a reservoir of prema, of divine love. So that is Pundarik Vidyanidhi, his divine appearance day. Then Raghunath Das Goswami, but Raghunath Das Goswami, we don't have enough time. Such an important Vaishnava. He is known as the Prayojan Acharya, as the teacher who has shown us what is the highest ideal of our line. And I'll just say a few words because we don't have time to say everything, and we couldn't anyway, of course. But I'll just mention, in particular, he highlighted the importance of Radha Dasyam as the highest end of this line, the servitorship of Radharani. And for those of you who are not familiar with what I'm speaking about, Srimati Radharani, she is the consort of Krishna. So she represents the divine feminine principle. Krishna represents the divine masculine principle, and Radharani is the female counterpart of that, the divine feminine principle. And Krishna's kind of like on the front shelf, or like as our Gurudev said it once, Krishna's like a big public administrator, so like in our front, we're devotees of Krishna. But on a deeper level, it is the worship of Radharani, which is of most significance in this line. And so Raghunath Das Goswami, this is, what he is especially known for, that he put so much emphasis on that. And he expressed such a deep affinity for the connection, the service of Radharani. He highlighted that in a way that no one else has done. So, this is what is most significant, we could say, about Raghunath Das Goswami. And there's one prayer in particular where he expresses this very extreme prayer to her. Ashabare mita sindhu mayai katanchit kalo mayati gamita kila sampratam hi tam chetri pammayi vidasya sinai vikimme praner rajena cha praner na rajena cha bakarinapi. And this is most extraordinary verse. We were discussing this a few days ago, but I don't remember if it was here or if it was on virtual media or in physical media. But this prayer, a very extraordinary prayer, where he's expressing this very desperate mood, and it's a very bold, Srila Sridhar Maharaj describes it as a very bold expression also, where he's begging Srimati Radharani, please give me your grace, please give me your mercy. And he's saying in this verse that, I've been dragging on my life for so many years, so many days, with just this one hope. And he compares this hope to an ocean of nectar. Shabare Amrita Sindhu. Asha is hope, aspiration, desire. Amrita Sindhu means an ocean of nectar. So he compares this hope that he's been sustaining his life on to an ocean of nectar. And what is that hope? It is the hope that he can receive the mercy and the service of Radharani. That's what he's been living on. We in this world, we live on food. We live on physical things that we put into our stomach, but higher souls, they're living on divine sentiment. They're living on their divine aspiration. We have one beautiful book, Prapana Jivanamrita. This was compiled by our grandfather, Guru Srila Sridhar Maharaj. And Prapana Jivanamrita, literally it means the nectar in the lives of the surrendered souls. There's a particular sweetness, there's a particular, and not just sweetness in an abstract sense, but this is like life-giving nectar. There's a particular nectar that only the surrendered souls are able to taste. Only the souls who have given themselves over to the other side, those who've gone over to the other side, that they're able to experience and taste. And they live on that. It's not just like something nice, that to be enjoyed, to enhance, their lifestyle. But they live on that. They live on that. And if they don't get it, then they die. That's how crucial it is. So Raghunath, and this is true because Raghunath Das Goswami, he lived on a cup of buttermilk. In his last days, he took a cup of buttermilk every day. You cannot live on that. These kinds of souls, they're taking some little thing like this. It's not enough to live on. They're living on something else. And that's this divine substance. So Raghunath is saying, I'm living on, and literally he is living on that. He's living, it's a direct prayer to Radharani, saying, please, I'm living on the hope that I will receive your mercy. That's how I'm able to continue with my life. And then the verse becomes more intense. And, as if it couldn't get more intense than that. And he says, so I'm only living on the hope that I will get your mercy. You have to give me your mercy. I'm only living on the hope of that. And if you don't give it to me, then I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't know how much longer I can wait. And then he concludes the verse saying that if I cannot receive your mercy, then everything is useless to me. He says, my own life is meaningless. My own life means nothing. Well, then he escalates. What to speak of my life? Vrindavan is more valuable than Vrindavan is the homeland of Krishna, the sacred land of Krishna. Vrindavan means nothing to me. Vrindavan is more valuable than myself, but that means nothing to me. Then he escalates, he raises the bar again. And he says, what to speak of Vrindavan? Even Krishna himself, he's useless to me. What can I do with Krishna if you're not by his side? Krishna is not beautiful without you. Krishna, without his Shakti, Krishna is not very, Krishna doesn't have anything without his Shakti. He's not beautiful. He's not attractive without his Shakti. So Krishna, and then it's actually like kind of shocking the way that he says this. And I feel offensive even saying it, but this is his expression. He refers to Krishna. He doesn't use the name Krishna. He calls Krishna Bakari Napi. And Bakari Napi means killer of the Bhakha. Bhakha is a particular demon, Asura, who tried to kill Krishna. So he refers to Krishna as the killer of the Bhakha demon. So he refers to, this is how, like, of all the ways you could choose to refer to Krishna, you know, Krishna is known for his beauty, his charm, his love, you know, but he doesn't refer to Krishna in that way. He refers to Krishna as that demon killer. So without you, Krishna is a killer of the demons, you know. Everything Krishna has on the positive side, it's because of his connection with you, his beauty, his attraction, his charm, his love. He has all of that because of you. So Krishna is not Krishna without you. What can I do with Krishna without you? So it is a very, very, very strong, very bold expression of Raghunath Das Goswami. And it is a very strong contrast, the life of Raghunath, because the whole life of Raghunath is just extraordinary. It's such an amazing example, because he was actually born into a very wealthy family. He was the only son as well in a very wealthy family. And so, you know, he had everything on a golden plate in front of him. You know, everything and anything that anyone could want in this world, he had that and more, you know, at his feet. But he had zero interest in it. He had utter disregard. And there's a whole history of him, you know, because his parents very much opposed his giving everything up. And so there's a whole history of him, you know, trying to run away from home and finally succeeding. I'll just mention one comment that our Gurudev liked very much. There's one conversation recorded between his parents, and you know, they're at a point where they're like at their wits' end, and they've got something like 12 guards who are accompanying him everywhere, but Raghunath keeps trying to leave. And then at one point, the mother and the father are totally frustrated, and they're having this conversation. You know, what are we going to do about our boy? And the mother, they're trying to work it out. And then at one point, the mother says, "Why don't we just tie him up with rope? Just tie him down." And the father, he gives a very nice reply. He says, he has more wealth than the king of heaven, and his wife is as beautiful, or he has as much wealth as the king of heaven, Indra, and his wife is as beautiful as a heavenly maiden, you know. And then he says, these are the strongest ropes in this world. So if those things can tie him down, then what can just ordinary ropes do? So anyhow, you know, eventually he's able to leave, and that's another whole other history. And then it's this extraordinary contrast, because he spends the rest of his life living in extreme simplicity. And Raghunath, really, probably more than any other of the companions of Mahaprabhu, he is known for his vairagya, for his degree of renunciation. It is very extreme, incomparable. It's mentioned in one place how he spent in the 24-hour, you know, day, he spent, I think it's an hour and a half, maybe Chinmoypu can correct me, an hour and a half eating and sleeping. An hour and a half eating and sleeping, and you know, bodily activities, and the rest of the 24 hours of every day was spent in reading and chanting and writing in these devotional activities. So very, very, very extreme example. And it's also significant how he, you know, first he came, Raghunath, he really shows, you know, what is our line, the Rupanuga line. You know, our gurus are highlighting the lotus feet of Sri Rupa as the highest goal, to serve in the care of Sri Rupa. And Raghunath, he also, in his journey, he demonstrated that in a very beautiful way. First he came to take shelter of Mahaprabhu. Mahaprabhu put him in the care of Sarup Damodar. And then finally Raghunath, in his last days, he went to Vrindavan and he took shelter of Rupa, and Sri Rupa Goswami in particular. Jai Shri Raghunath Das Goswami ki Jai. We pray for a drop of his grace this day. Then also we must mention today Raghunandan Thakur. Raghunandan Thakur, he's one of the Vaishnavas, one of the child Vaishnavas who are celebrated in our line. There are a few like that, Prahlad Maharaj, Dhruva Maharaj, and then Raghunandan Thakur, he's another one. And there's a very nice exchange recorded in Chaitanya Charitamrita. When Mahaprabhu, he would always, when all the Bengali Vaishnavas would arrive to Puri, then Mahaprabhu would receive them, and there's descriptions in Chaitanya Charitamrita how, Mahaprabhu would individually greet each devotee, perhaps not one by one, but he would go around and personally greet many of the Vaishnavas in the group, and also when they were leaving, he would bid them farewell in the same way. And so there are a few descriptions of this in Chaitanya Charitamrita, and often he would have some special message, a personal message for each Vaishnava. And so on one occasion, Raghunandan's family, they arrive, or maybe they're departing, I don't remember, but they're greeting Mahaprabhu. And Mahaprabhu asks, when Mahaprabhu asks Raghunandan's father, I think his name is Mukunda. Oh, Mukunda, he was a doctor, a physician. And Mahaprabhu asked him, "Oh, Mukunda, tell me, who is the father and who is the son? Are you the father and Raghunandan is the son? Or is Raghunandan the father and you are the son?" And Mukunda, he replied very nicely. He said, he's the father, but he replied saying, actually, Raghunandan is the father and I am the son, because by Raghunandan's grace, we have Krishna Bhakti. So he had that pure heart where he could recognize that his son was more advanced in devotion than himself. So he was seeing it in that way, that seniority is not to be determined by age and position, but by the quality, the depth of heart. So he honored his son in that way. But there's this famous story, no doubt all of you are familiar with that pastime with Raghunandan Thakur when he was very young, maybe 10, 11, 12 years old maximum. Normally the wife would cook in the tradition. The wife would cook and then the husband would offer to the deity. So this was their daily, this was how this is what they would do every day. But then there was one day when the Mukunda, the father, he had to, I'm talking, sorry, about the family home of Raghunandan and his parents. So on one day, Mukunda had to go very far away. So he wasn't going to be there to make the offering. And so he told his son, Raghunandan, you please, make this offering today. And he made some comment, like to feed the deity. And so he left, and then the time came, and the wife, she gave the offerings to her son, Raghunandan, and Raghunandan came and presented that to their Gopal deity, and Raghunandan presented it, and then he sat there waiting, but nothing happened. and he started to become upset, because based on what he heard from his father, he was expecting the deity to physically take those foodstuffs. So he started to beg the deity, please take this. My father said I have to feed you. Please take this. And he started to cry, please, please take this. He was thinking, I'm going to get it. If I can't do this properly, I'm going to get in trouble. And so finally, the Gopal deity, he was so moved by the earnestness of Raghunandan, earnestness and devotion of Raghunandan, that he physically began to take those foodstuffs. And Raghunandan was gratified, and he came and brought out the empty plates. and his mother was very, very surprised, and she thought that her son must have eaten those offerings himself, and so she began to chastise him. And he protested, no, I promise, I didn't eat it. Gopal took it. And then the father came home, and he came to the same conclusion. But Raghunandan, he protested. So, no, I promise you, it wasn't me. What you told me to feed the deity, and so I did. What is the problem? And then the father, he said, you're sure that the deity himself physically took this? And Raghunandan said, yes, I promise. Then can you show me again? Can you do it again? I will try. And so again, another offering was prepared, and Raghunandan came and offered to the deity, and his father watched outside through a peephole, and he saw the same thing took place, that the Gopal deity, he personally came and physically took those offerings. So such was the devotion of Raghunandan Thakur. There are a few special stories like that, that the deity is always eternally present, but it is only in reciprocation with the particular devotion of very high souls that the deity will, physically express themselves in these ways. So there are a few stories like that we hear, and this is one of them. And Raghunandan, as I recall, he lived as a brahmachari for his whole life, and there was a temple that he stayed at, as I recall. There's a chapter in one of our books, Sermons of the Guardian Devotion, very long talk of Srila Sridhar Maharaj, where he's talking about all of these persons. But as I recall there, he mentioned that every day there was a temple Raghunandan served at for his whole life. And there was a tree, I think it was a champak tree. And every day there were 2 champak flowers that would bloom on that tree that Raghunandan would use in worship of the deity. So Raghunandan Thakur, and also this day, disappearance day of Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, very important. He wrote very important commentaries on our Vaishnava scriptures, and he's renowned for very as Gurudev would say, scrutinizing his analysis that he would give of different pastimes. It was very, very, very fine. He would make very fine points and analyze things in a very very deep way. He is renowned for that. Very, 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 very important and honored Acharya and scholar in our line. Then also Bharati Maharaj and Parvat Maharaj, they were two godbrothers of Srila Sridhar Maharaj. There's also their disappearance day. I believe it is Parvat Maharaj who lived next door to Bhaktivinoda Thakur in his youth. And this is before he came to, long before he came to the Gaudiya Math and took shelter of Srila Saraswati Thakur. But he had in Godrumadweep, in Navadweep, his family home happened to be next to Swananda Sukara Kunj, the place of the Bhajan Kutir of Bhaktivinoda Thakur. And he described as a young boy how he used to see Bhaktivinoda Thakur very early in the morning rising and like 2 o'clock, 3 in the morning chanting on his mala. And that description we hear came from him, of him paying back and forth and calling out, with so much, fervor, like as if he was seeing Krishna in the distance and calling out to him in that type of, very earnest way. He would take his mala. That was Parvat Maharaj. And then later on, when he was older, he came in contact with Srila Saraswati Thakur and joined the Gaudiya Math. Okay, well, a few words about all of these great divine persons, all congregating on this holy day. We pray to them all for their divine mercy, for our capacity to continue in one way or another in this very high line towards this very high goal that our gurus are giving us. Okay, well, let's see, we have some others have joined us. Nandarani Didi, Dandavat Pranams, I see is here also. Very happy to have you with us.
Dandavat Didi.
Dandavat, great to see you with us today. We're remembering Vasanta Panchami, which is tomorrow, and also Janardhan Maharaj's appearance day, which is today. Yeah. And Govinda Nandini, Brazil, is also here. Dandavat Pranams. Very happy you could join us. And Rukmini is also joining us. Rukmini, Devi, Didi is joining us from Alachua, Florida. Dandavat Pranams. And Suvasini Didi is also here, joining us from Ireland. Dandavat Didi. Ramananda Prabhu is also here again. Dandavat Prabhu, hope you're well. There's Suvasini, turned on her screen for a moment. Dandavat. It's nice when the devotee, I know devotees are shy sometimes, but it's nice when we can see your auspicious forms. And Uma Devi Dasi is also joining us again from London. Dandavat. Dandavat. Happy to have you with us. There's Rukmini. Hello. How are things in Alachua?
You asking for me, Didi?
Oh, I don't know if it's just me, but I can't hear anything.
Your microphone's not working well, Rukmini.
Yeah, I just hear a few little squeaks. Yeah. Okay. Well.
Bandwas Vishakha Didi, thank you so much.
Oh, thank you for joining us, for giving us your good company. Does anyone else want to add anything? Chinmoy Prabhu, you want to anything? Should we stop there?
No, we're just very grateful that we get to hear some glorification of the devotees, the Vaishnavas. I heard Gurudev say the other day, if we could satisfy the devotees, the Vaishnavas, then the deities will be satisfied. So I think we've done that today.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can, loud and clear.
Well, it's getting intense here. We didn't have any bad experience for the whole year with the virus, but right now we are having like devotees and close people to family getting the virus, so we are kind of staying more at home. Yeah.
Let's see. Is that your husband in the background?
Yes.
Okay.
He's with another devotee here.
Okay. Well, we wish you all the best. They're here in Hungary. They're amongst the devotees. Dhanavad Prabhu, happy to see you.
Happy to see you. Nice class.
Very nice to see you. Oh. Yeah, we here in Hungary, there's amongst the devotees, there's actually been quite a few, at least half a dozen of the devotees, they got the virus. But everyone recovered very easily within 2 or 3 weeks. And mostly also their symptoms were not very serious.
It was mild.
So
we have a big community of senior here that are like in also there is our age. Like I have 2 or 3 people of my family that right now they're having the symptoms. We are quite worried because I'm getting to the end of the pregnancy, so it can be, I don't know what can happen, but we are getting a little tension just because of that, and the kids are going to school and everything, so eventually we don't know if we should stay home, because I have just 7 weeks to have the baby and my health is not quite well. So yes, but very sweet to hear the devotees. That's the best of the COVID is this experience, to be able to hear you and to have the classes and everything is just a bless.
Well, everyone here in our group is wishing you all the best. I know everyone's going to be thinking of your newborn and hoping everything comes out well.
Thank you so much.
I'm sure you have Gurudev's blessings upon you. You're a very auspicious family.
Thank you so much for your blessings. That means a lot for me.
All right. Well, should we stop there? Does anyone else want to add anything? Govinda Nandini, want to say anything? Or Suvasini Didi, Nandarani Didi? We have many honorable Vaishnavas here. Giridhari Prabhu. Anyone? Or should we stop? Suvasini is unmuted.
That's wonderful, Didi. So wonderful to hear about those glorious glories of those great Vaishnavas. Actually, it's beautiful.
Well, we're happy to have some good friends who we can share these things that we've received, that we've heard from our gurus. Seamus, you look like you want to say something.
No, I'm okay. Actually, I'm hearing from Mahaprabhu. I love hearing all your stories and that, especially from Mahaprabhu, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. I love hearing those stories. I can connect with all the stories, but I find I can connect more sometimes when I hear those stories. So yeah, so it just really, I suppose I find I understand that more, and I can connect with more. So that's it. But it's beautiful to hear all the stories. But yeah, thank you. Yeah, that's all. Don't have anything to say.
Nice. Jai.
Jai.
Jai, did you want to say anything?
Just thank you, and I relate with what Seamus is saying. I hear that story so many times, but it's nice in Sangha to hear it directly from the sadhus. It always has more meaning and is more touching. Yeah.
Hi, Dave. Right. All right. Yes, please.
Yeah. So I want to ask something. Like Param Guru Maharaj was very exclusive. He had such a high standard. I've been listening. So how to become proper receiver? Very few can get him. See, I was listening. Guru Maharaj telling, Gurudev telling also, but it's so hard to kind of capture the essence because Guru Maharaj is very exclusive. Rupanuga all over. See?
Yes, I mean, many of these things we're keeping them on an upper shelf, and they don't, like a precious treasure that you keep carefully guarded, and every now and again you take it out and you polish it and you look at it, admire it, and maybe show to some of your good friends. Many of these things, they're like that. Well, what is the high aspiration of Raghunath Das Goswami? What is the service of Sri Rupa? These are things that are not, we don't feel them, at least for myself, they don't feel to be so relevant, I mean, sometimes I feel like if I can just brush my teeth today, it's a good day. Like, that's where I am. I'm not even joking. Some days are so bad. I'm happy if I can just do that. Like that's my level. I chanted my japa today. Like, oh, like that's where we are. And I don't want to pretend I'm anywhere else. That will be detrimental. So these, many of these things, they're like this special treasure we keep tucked away. And every now and again on days like today, we're bringing them out, and we are expressing appreciation from what we've heard from our gurus. And we don't have to artificially, try to, we don't want our appreciation to be artificial, and we don't want our appreciation to be theoretical or academic, to just be on a mental level, so we're not forcing any of this. And otherwise today lives, we're trying to keep a service connection, in whatever small way it may be. Shravan, Kirtan, Sadhu Sangha, Vaishnava Seva, and all of these things, day by day. We are Vaishnavas. That is the best. That is something real and tangible. We need Vaishnava Kripa. We need the Vaishnavas in our lives. That is the, that's the fuel. That's the fuel for our engines in our lives. And we shouldn't artificially, try to, all of these high ideals. We don't want to artificially imbibe them. So, let these things come, let them descend. And in the meantime, every now and again, we we are expressing appreciation. Let it come in its own, let the real thing come in its own time. Because it's not just a conception, but what we're talking about is not just history or ideas or philosophy, or it's a current, it's a spiritual current, and we want that to descend to our hearts. So we don't want to, and we can't force that. It will come in its own time. So, in the meantime, we're just trying to go on with the daily practices, trying to keep some service connection, however small it is. And when it is time, it will be time. When a woman is going to give birth, the baby, when it's the right time, you can't stop it. So similarly in spiritual life, when the proper time is there, when the proper time has come, we won't be able to stop it. It will come. So in the meantime, we're preparing the ground. Make yourself a proper reserve. Okay, Chinmoy Prabhu, I know you must have Janardhan Maharaj's program to go to. He's just saying
he's calling me because he decided to start a Zoom meeting. Oh, there he is. He's decided to start a Zoom meeting at 11 o'clock today, and so I have to set up a Zoom meeting for this right now. So I'm sorry.
Okay. Well, thank you for hosting us, Chinmoy Prabhu. As always.
Everyone. Jai Vishakha Devi Dasi ki jai.
Jai Chinmoy Prabhu ki jai. Jai Janardhan Maharaj ki jai. So yeah, Gurudev would talk about being a proper receiver. So we're trying to do that. Sorry, Chinmoy Prabhu, should we end now?
No, I'm just going to go.
Okay. All right. I'll just
be the boss now.
Okay. So
but I think
so
run out of battery. Chintamani, do you have
okay.
I'll
just be a few more minutes anyway.
Keep going. I think we have a few minutes left of battery, and then I'll go get the adapter anyways, just in case. It's nice to have you around for longer. So I'm happy.
Okay. That was something Gurudev would emphasize, being a proper receiver. This is probably like the main thing that we need to do, and it's a difficult adjustment because in material life, we're accustomed to thinking the other way, that we have to assert ourselves, that we have to establish ourselves, that we have to get something. Want to have something tangible in our hands, or like we were discussing a few weeks ago, we want to quantify everything. We want to qualify and quantify everything, and we want to see the evidence on Facebook or Instagram. We like to have something in our hand. So it's a difficult adjustment because spiritual life, we have to have the opposite approach. It's all descending. So we have to put ourselves in the posture of receiving. That's our focus. How can I receive? Not how can I get it? How can I take it and hold it and put it in my pocket? But how can I receive it? It wants to come automatically, but how can I make myself the proper vessel to receive that? So yes, what our gurus have given is so high. It is so we can't even begin to appreciate how high and how valuable it is. But we also can't expect to get it. We can't get it because, oh yeah, now I've decided that I want this. Yeah, sign me up. I'll have a piece of that. Like, are they supposed to just go on their knees? Oh, thank you so much. Like, no. If anything, it's, as Srila Maharaj said once, welcome, no entrance. He made some comment like that. We can put this sign on our doors. on the front doors of our temples. Welcome, no entrance.
Dr. Devi Dasi.
Yes, Prabhu.
I'm so sorry, but I have to end the meeting.
Okay, sure,
Yeah,
no problem.
Zoom won't let me start a new meeting without ending the meeting that's occurring.
Okay, please give our apologies to Maharaj, and we'll continue this next week. Jai Shri Gurudev ki jai. Dhanavad to everybody.